You think you've heard it all, the screams, the legends, the myths surrounding Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. But what if I told you there's something far darker buried beneath the laughter and the birthday balloons? This isn't just another game. This is the story of a place cursed by forgotten pain, twisted souls, and machines that were never meant to remember. Welcome to 5 Nights at Freddy's 2, The Untold Nightmare, a story so disturbing, you'll never look at a children's pizzeria the same again. Are you brave enough to survive the nights? The job description was simple. Night security guard needed at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. Midnight to 6 a.m. minimal work. Easy pay. That's what drew Jeremy Fitzgerald in. He needed cash. Didn't matter how. He was behind on rent, his car was dead, and he was a breath away from being another nameless corpse on the street. So when he saw the ad tacked on a rotting telephone pole near his apartment, it felt like a cruel joke from the universe. But desperation doesn't have pride. He took the job. What they didn't tell him in the ad, though, was that this place was more than just a children's pizzeria. It was a mausoleum with flashing lights. A tomb with animatronic clowns. A goddamn haunted funhouse wearing a child-friendly mask. And tonight, his first night, he would come face to face with the truth. Jeremy pulled up in front of Freddy Fazbear's Pizza in a borrowed, coughing sedan just as the last sliver of sunlight bled behind the horizon. The sign above the door flickered, hissing like a dying insect, Freddy Fazbear's Pizza, where fantasy and fun come to life. It looked like something out of a nightmare dreamt by a taxidermist on meth. Paint peeling from the bricks. Windows dark like staring eyes. A weird, sticky scent in the air, like sugar mixed with blood. As he stepped through the front doors, the faint jingle of a music box played from deep within the darkness, echoing across the empty dining hall. Tables stood neatly arranged with untouched paper plates and party hats. Balloons bobbed gently in place, although no wind stirred. It was too perfect. Too still. Like a party that ended with the guests being buried under the floorboards. The security office was a narrow, suffocating space with a desk, a monitor bank, and 2 hallway vents on either side. The fluorescent lights above buzzed like flies feasting on a corpse. As Jeremy sat down, the phone on the desk crackled to life. Hello? Hello. Welcome to your new summer job at Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. The voice was friendly, practiced, but there was an undercurrent of something else. Tension. Regret. The guy rambled about the animatronics, about how they were now, facial recognition equipped and tethered to some criminal database, and then he said something that made Jeremy's gut churn. But, the characters do tend to wander a bit, they've always had a bit of a, free-roaming mode at night. Wander? Jeremy felt the cold pinch of dread down his spine. In fact, the older models, we call them the wizards, tend to become aggressive. But don't worry. You've got that Freddy Fazbear head we left under the desk. Just slip it on if they get too close. They'll think you're one of them. The message ended with static. And just like that, the silence returned, so thick it choked the air. 12 a.m. The first hour crawled like a dying insect. Jeremy stared at the camera feeds. The halls, the party rooms, the cove, the stage they were all still. Until they weren't. 1:03 a.m. He blinked and Bonnie was gone. The blue bunny with the vacant stare was no longer on the stage. Jeremy flipped through the cams frantically until he spotted it, Party Room 3. Standing there. Half in shadow. Head tilted like it was listening. Then it moved. Just a flicker. A glitch in the feed. But when the camera came back, it was closer. Right at the edge of the doorway. Jeremy's heartbeat doubled. He reached under the desk and found the Freddy mask, a bulky, plastic thing that reeked of mildew and sweat. He yanked it onto his head and held his breath. The office was still. He heard footsteps. Slow. Deliberate. Thump, thump. Thump. Then silence. When he pulled the mask off, the hallway camera was dead. The system rebooted slowly, too slowly, and then came back online. Bonnie was gone. 2 a.m. Something worse stirred now. Jeremy noticed it first in Cam 07, the hallway outside the parts and service room. Something tall. Thin. Black and white like an old-timey cartoon nightmare. It didn't move. But its face. The puppet, the marionette, was staring directly into the camera. Its grin split ear to ear. Lips unmoving, but eyes, twitching, pulsing with a frantic energy. Then, from nowhere, the soft whir of a music box began to play. Jeremy blinked. It was coming from the monitor. A timer now ticked at the bottom of the screen, music box maintenance, 68%. 67%. A warning flashed. Keep music box wound at all times. Why? The question scratched inside his skull like a rat in the walls. But he didn't wait to find out. He fumbled with the control panel, wound the virtual dial like his life depended on it. Because maybe it did. When he checked the hallway again, the puppet was gone. 2:47 a.m. Things spiraled fast. Chica now roamed near the game area. Her yellow suit was stained, her beak twisted unnaturally, like it had been ripped and put back together wrong. Jeremy could see wires dangling from her neck, dripping what looked like thick, black tar. She twitched toward the camera. Then Foxy came, bolting down the hallway like a missile made of fur and vengeance. Jeremy threw the mask on, nearly choking on his own panic. Foxy's breathing, yes, breathing, grew louder, faster, almost hungry. He felt the weight of eyes on him through the mask's eye holes. Foxy stopped just inches from the desk. Jeremy could smell rust. Blood. Then, silence. When he removed the mask, the camera showed Foxy back in Pirate Cove, twitching spasmodically, as if his very existence was screaming to be freed. 3:30 a.m. Jeremy was shaking. Sweating through his uniform. His hand wouldn't stop trembling as he rewound the goddamn music box again and again. The animatronics weren't malfunctioning. That word was too kind. Too technical. These things weren't machines anymore. They were inhabited. Infested. Possessed. Children's laughter echoed faintly through the speaker. Warped. Slowed down, reversed. Like a satanic record on a broken turntable. And then came the whispers. From the vents. He's not one of us. He's watching. Watching like the man before. Let's open him up. Jeremy flinched as the vent camera lit up. Balloon Boy, that creepy, dead-eyed child animatronic, was crawling through the shaft. Smiling. Jeremy slammed the vent door shut. The metal creaked as something pressed against it from the inside. Then laughter. A soft, wet giggle. 4:15 a.m. Lights flickered. The entire system began glitching, distorted faces flickered across the screens, real children's eyes peeking through the animatronic suits. Jeremy saw things. Horrible, disjointed things. A face crushed behind a mask. A child's hand trapped in Foxy's chest cavity. Eyes floating in oil. A purple figure dragging a body behind the stage. And through it all, the puppet stared. From nowhere and everywhere at once. As Jeremy rewound the music box, he noticed something slither behind the marionette in the feed. A twitching shadow. Then the sound cut out. Silence. Total. Horrifying. Silence. 5:12 a.m. The walls began to breathe. No, Jeremy was losing it. Hallucinating. He had to be. The cameras were failing. One by one. Blank screens. Static. The mask wouldn't go on. It felt too tight. Like it was resisting. Or worse, trying to fuse with his face. He tugged it off and gasped, feeling skin tear from his cheeks. There was blood on the inside. His blood. Then a voice. A whisper directly behind him. "You're next." He spun around. Nothing. But the air was cold. Thick. Pulsing. 5:59 a.m. Everything went dark. No power. No cameras. The music box played slowly now, like it was winding down to death. And in the distance. Footsteps. Clicking. Dragging. Metal grinding against tile. Then a shape in the doorway. The puppet. Unfurling. Spindly. Hollow. Its arms reached the ceiling, twitching like spider legs. Its face was cracked open like a doll's, revealing something human. It moved closer. Jeremy put the mask on, sobbing silently inside it. The puppet leaned forward. Close. Closer. Its face pressed against his. Through the eye holes. He saw himself. But not as he was. No. A dead thing. Stuffed inside a suit. Eyes gouged. Mouth open in a silent scream. 6 a.m. Ding dong ding dong. The jingle played. The lights returned. Everything was back to normal. Jeremy sat there, shaking, blood dried on his face, mask beside him like a cursed relic. The animatronics were back on the stage. The puppet was gone. For now. But deep inside, Jeremy knew. This was just night one. And Freddy Fazbear's doesn't just kill you. It keeps you. Forever. Jeremy didn't sleep when he got home. He didn't even make it to his bed. He sat in the shower for nearly an hour, fully clothed, arms wrapped around his knees as the hot water pounded down and washed the dried blood from his face. But no amount of heat could burn away what he'd seen. No steam could blur the images that were now seared into his mind, that grin, that face behind the puppet's mask, the sickening sound of something breathing inside the walls. He told himself he wouldn't go back. He screamed it into his hands. But desperation. That old parasite. Dragged him back. Night 2. 12 a.m. Jeremy entered the building like a man walking willingly into his own grave. The lights still flickered. The smell still lingered, a festering rot beneath a layer of sugar and grease. The tables and balloons looked untouched, like someone pressed pause on a hellish party mid-scream. He didn't look at the stage this time. He didn't want to see those things pretending to be fun. He just walked to the office, shoulders hunched, hands shaking. The phone rang the second he sat down. "Hey, welcome back. Night 2. You made it, congrats." The voice was cheerful again. Jeremy hated it. "Listen, tonight might be a little more active. Management says the withered animatronics in parts and service may start moving around. We didn't have the budget to fully repair them, so, yeah. If they wander into your office, same rules apply, mask on, stay quiet, don't move." There was a pause, then a quieter voice. "Just, watch out for the old Freddy. He doesn't respond well to mistakes." Then static. Then silence. Jeremy reached for the camera panel and sighed. 12:37 a.m. Cam 08, parts and service. They were still. All four. Withered Freddy. Withered Bonnie. Withered Chica. Withered Foxy. Jeremy could barely recognize them from the newer models. Their suits were torn, shredded, wires spilling like entrails. Eyes glowed faintly in their empty sockets. Their jaws hung open, not in smiles, but in a horrible, permanent scream. Bonnie had no face. No face. Just exposed servos, wires twitching like worms, one glowing red eye in a hollow metal skull. Jeremy felt sick. 1:15 a.m. Movement. Bonnie was gone. Jeremy's breath caught in his throat. He flipped through the cams. Cam 05, Bonnie was there, in the hallway, limping slowly, dragging one malformed leg. Its head twitched left, then right. Then left again. Like it was sniffing. Looking for him. Jeremy slammed the camera shut and threw on the mask. His breathing was fast and shallow inside it, fogging the eye holes. Thump. Thump. Heavy, mechanical footsteps echoed toward the office. Then, nothing. Jeremy peeked. Gone. 1:36 a.m. The music box. He'd almost forgotten. The bar had dropped to 12%. A low whine echoed through the speakers. That damned song again, twisted, mechanical, full of dread. He scrambled to wind it up before. He. Jeremy froze. The voice was right outside the vent. He turned the vent cam on and felt his stomach lurch. Balloon Boy. In the shaft. Smiling. Holding a sign that read, "Hi." Except the sign was splintered. The letters looked like they'd been scratched in with claws. Jeremy slammed the right vent shut. Metal clanked. Something pressed against it. Then a giggle. Not playful. Hungry. 2 a.m. Chica moved next. She crawled. Not walked, crawled. Bent and twitching, her hands dragging her broken body across the party room floor. Her jaw hung completely loose, swinging like a pendulum. Her eyes had gone completely black. In cam 03, Jeremy watched her slowly lift herself up to a standing position. Her head snapped to the side violently, then she started walking toward the hallway. Jeremy threw the mask on again. He could hear her dragging footsteps on the linoleum. He heard wires scrape against the tile. Then. A sniffing. Like something trying to smell what kind of meat was hiding in the room. She didn't enter the office. Not fully. But her shadow did. It was wrong. Twisted. Like 3 arms instead of 2. And behind it, something else. A longer shadow. Something taller. 2:59 a.m. The system glitched. The cameras blinked. Static took over. Then flashed images. Real photos. A child's birthday party. Smiling faces. Then, a different image. A small shoe, covered in blood, lying on a floor covered in confetti. A party hat floating in a puddle of thick, black liquid. Jeremy recoiled. When the cameras returned, Bonnie was right outside the office. Jeremy fumbled for the mask. Too slow. Bonnie stepped in. Its faceless metal head leaned close. Jeremy froze. Its red eye flared like a heat lamp, scanning his face. Its breath was wet and metallic. Then. It stopped. Paused. Turned. And left. Jeremy collapsed backward, gasping. 3:45 a.m. The puppet was active. Jeremy could feel it. The music box was fully wound, but he still saw it moving. On the ceiling of the hallway outside the office, limbs twitching like broken limbs of a spider puppet. Jeremy whispered to himself. Please don't come in. Please don't come in. Please don't come. Slam. A thud in the left vent. Cam 06 showed withered Foxy halfway through, jaws open, a tangle of teeth and darkness. His chest had a giant hole torn through it. Something moved inside it. Jeremy slammed the left vent shut and yanked the mask on. But the light in the hallway flickered. Something walked by. Not Foxy. Not Bonnie. Not Chica. Freddy. But not the toy Freddy. This was older. Dirtier. More human. His head tilted to one side. As if remembering. As if recognizing. Jeremy didn't breathe. Freddy stood in the doorway. Watching. The mask didn't seem to fool him. He stepped forward. One more. Closer. Jeremy stared through the mask's eyes and whispered. I'm not him. I'm not him. I didn't do it. Freddy stopped. Head cocked. Then, backed away. Jeremy sobbed. Silently in the dark. 4:39 a.m. The whispers returned. They came from inside the walls. From inside the animatronics. He smells like fear. Does he scream like the last one? Let's find out. Jeremy rocked back and forth in the chair, hands clutching his head. He couldn't do this. He couldn't survive 5 nights. Not even one more. But then something appeared on the monitor that made his blood run colder than before. Cam 04, show stage. The animatronics were still standing, but behind them. A shape. Purple. Tall. Human. It stood in the shadows. Watching the others. Watching him. The purple man. 5:23 a.m. Foxy returned. Fast. Too fast. Jeremy barely got the mask on before the thing burst into the office, skidding on the floor with an animalistic screech. Its mouth opened far too wide. Inside. Not metal. Not servos. Teeth. Rows of sharp, human-like teeth. It didn't leave. Not right away. It sniffed the air. Then growled. Jeremy's mask began to crack. The pressure on his face was unbearable. Just as the plastic started to give way. The music box hit 30%. Jeremy tore the mask off and rewound. Fast. Panicked. Desperate. He didn't even care that he was crying now. Tears mixed with blood. Then the whisper. 1 more hour. 6 a.m. Ding dong ding dong. The lights returned. The shadows receded. The animatronic stood still once more, like nothing had happened. The puppet returned to its box. Freddy's stage was empty. But Jeremy couldn't move. Not for several minutes. He sat in the chair, soaked in sweat, chest heaving. Then the speaker crackled. One final message, whispered, not by the phone guy, but by something else. See you tomorrow night, Jeremy. The line went dead. He was too scared to scream. Too numb to run. And deep inside, a sick, awful truth had started to root itself in his mind. They weren't trying to kill him. They were trying to make him one of them. Jeremy didn't go home after night 2. He couldn't. He drove around in circles for hours, the car's engine wheezing beneath him like a dying animal. The city felt different now, emptier, quieter. Every alley looked like a mouth. Every flickering streetlight reminded him of that goddamn music box. His skin crawled with invisible things, like the shadows from the restaurant had crawled into his clothes, his ears, his mind. At some point, he parked by a gas station, curled into the back seat, and passed out under the dull glow of a buzzing light. But even sleep gave him no peace. In his dreams, he was trapped inside the Freddy mask. It had fused to his face, melting into his skin. He couldn't breathe. Couldn't scream. The animatronics surrounded him, peeling their faces off, revealing rotting children underneath. They reached out. And pulled him in. Night 3. 12 a.m. Jeremy walked into Freddy Fazbear's Pizza like a man returning to the scene of his own murder. He didn't feel human anymore. More like a husk, flesh stitched together by adrenaline and regret. The lights inside the building flickered more violently now, like they knew something had changed. The air had gone heavier, sourer. He didn't bother checking the dining room this time. He just staggered to the office, shut the doors behind him, and sat in that rotting chair, staring at the monitors like they were tombstones. The phone rang. But it wasn't the same voice. It was deeper. Slower. Like someone dragging a body across a floor. "You shouldn't have come back, Jeremy." Jeremy's breath caught in his throat. "They know you're sent now. They remember the man who wore your face before." He tried the mask too. It didn't help him. The line went dead. Jeremy's blood ran cold. 12:41 a.m. Jeremy checked the cameras. Cam 06, air vent, right balloon boy again. Crawling like a spider. Head twisting 180 degrees. His eyes were hollow this time. Soulless. Cam 08, parts and service. Withered Freddy, gone. Cam 02, hallway, something moved in the dark. A figure too tall, too thin, arms too long. Jeremy switched to Cam 11. The puppet. Still in its box. Music box wound. No issue. But its eyes followed the camera. He knew it was watching him. No. Judging. 1:09 a.m. The lights in the vents began flickering faster. Jeremy reached for the Freddy mask instinctively, but paused. Something felt wrong. The mask was warm. Too warm. He lifted it. Inside were teeth. Real ones. Not plastic. Human. Stained and cracked, like they'd been ripped from a skull and shoved inside. Jeremy screamed and threw the mask across the room, heart pounding like a jackhammer. The hallway camera lit up. Withered Freddy. Lumbering forward, slowly, like something remembering how to move. His jaw hung off its hinges, swinging loosely with every step. Something wet dripped from his mouth. Not oil. Black. Thick. Blood. Jeremy scrambled to retrieve the mask. But when he touched it, it bit him. No. No. Not bit. Sliced. The inner rim had blades now. Thin razors sticking out like a bear trap. Jeremy's palm gushed blood. 1:43 a.m. He had no mask. No protection. He did the only thing he could, hide beneath the desk like a child hiding from monsters under the bed. But these monsters didn't care about furniture. He heard the footsteps. The thump. Drag. Thump. Then, breathing. Heavy. Mechanical. Wrong. A huge shadow fell over the floor. Jeremy pressed his mouth shut, trying not to breathe. Then. A voice. But not from an animatronic. From the speaker above. He's under the desk. Just like the others. Jeremy felt the blood drain from his body. Then something began to kneel. Metal creaked. Joints popped. Jeremy saw the glint of yellowed teeth inches from his face. Withered Freddy was sniffing him. The stench was unbearable, rot and rust and burnt rubber. He reached a hand forward. Jeremy braced for death. But then. A song. The music box. It was dying. 2 a.m. Jeremy launched out from under the desk and slammed the camera controls. The music box bar had dropped to 8%. He wound it. Fast. Frantic. His blood smeared across the monitor. He didn't care. Just keep it wound. He heard Freddy's moan of confusion as he retreated, dragged away by something unseen. Saved by the puppet. But it didn't feel like salvation. It felt like a deal. A contract. I protect you, for now. 2:37 a.m. The cameras flickered violently. Images flashed again. A birthday party. A group of children. Then. 5 black and white photos. Children. Crying. Standing in the hallway. Faces blurred. Then. Him. Jeremy's face. Inserted in one of the photos. Smiling. Bloody. Holding a cake. No. No. What the hell? He switched cameras. The stage. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, but their heads were all turned toward the camera now. Watching him. Mocking. Waiting. 3:15 a.m. Foxy came. This time, he didn't run. He crawled. On all fours. His jaws scraped against the tile floor, teeth clicking, sparks flying. He was smiling. There was something inside his chest now, something that moved. Jeremy zoomed the hallway camera. Inside Foxy's cavity was a face. A real one. A child. Dead eyes staring out from behind a screen of wires and bones. Jeremy dry heaved. Foxy rose to 2 legs. And sprinted. Jeremy threw himself under the desk again. No mask. No defense. He whispered, begged. I'm not him. I'm not the one who did it. Foxy's claws scraped across the tile as he entered the room. His snout hovered just above the floor. His ears twitched. Then, from behind Foxy. A bell. Soft. Echoing. Faint. Foxy growled. Turned. And left. Jeremy stayed under the desk for 10 whole minutes, too afraid to move. 4 a.m. The mask was gone. He didn't throw it far, but now it had vanished. Instead, something else sat on the desk. A child's face mask, paper thin, with a smile drawn in crayon and eyes. Poked through. Jeremy didn't know if it was a joke or a message. He didn't put it on. 4:39 a.m. The puppet emerged. The camera glitched. Cam 11, empty. The music box was full. But the hallway camera showed the puppet crawling across the floor on its fingers. Not walking, skittering, like a centipede. Its limbs bent backward. Its grin wide and too human. Jeremy backed into the wall, helpless. The puppet crawled past the office door. Then stopped. Its head turned, slowly, toward him. Eyes met. It whispered. The mask won't help you anymore. 5 a.m. The vents rattled. Chica came through the left one. Balloon Boy through the right. No doors. No mask. Nothing but fear. Jeremy grabbed a flashlight. Flicked it on. Light hit Balloon Boy's face, it didn't flinch. Chica emerged, dragging herself along the office floor. Jeremy screamed. Then a shape filled the hallway. Golden. Not Freddy. Something worse. Golden Freddy. He stood, still as death, at the entrance. His eyes black. Mouth wide open in a scream of silence. Jeremy froze. Then. The world exploded. Every light burst. Cameras died. All screens turned to static. Then. 6 a.m. The chime played. The building powered down. And everything stopped. Jeremy sat alone, soaked in sweat, blood on his hands, surrounded by darkness. The child's mask was gone. The Freddy mask, still missing. But something else lay on the desk now. A small card. Jeremy picked it up. It read. We're almost ready for you. 2 more nights. His breath hitched. In the corner of the card was a signature. A purple smiley face. Drawn in blood. Jeremy didn't remember how he got home. Or even if he went home. All he knew was he woke up in the same clothes, hands still smeared with dried blood, nails caked with black grime that wasn't his, and the distant sound of carnival music echoing in his ears like a fading memory. He'd started hallucinating, had to be. Right? At least that's what he told himself. Except the wound on his hand from the Freddy mask was still fresh. The gash on his cheek from Foxy's swipe hadn't scabbed yet. The pain was real. The blood was real. And the fear. That gnawing, rotting, suffocating terror. Was becoming a part of him. He should have quit. But that invisible hook, that dreadful, unnatural pull, dragged him back. Because the truth was. He needed to know what was really happening in Freddy Fazbear's Pizza. And why he kept dreaming of children calling his name. Night 4. 12 a.m. He didn't bother checking in this time. No greeting. No phone call. Just silence. Jeremy entered through the side entrance, the one they didn't tell him about, the one that still smelled like bleach and old vomit. The door was slightly open, as if something expected him. Inside, the air was colder. The lights were already flickering, but more erratic tonight, like the building itself was on edge. He stepped into the office and immediately noticed it. The Freddy mask was back on the desk. But now it had a long, deep crack running straight through its face. And someone, or something, had scratched the words, "Lie to them," on the side. He didn't touch it. Not yet. 12:27 a.m. The first camera Jeremy checked was Cam 08, Parts and Service. Withered Freddy, Bonnie, and Chica were gone. Only withered Foxy remained, twitching violently in the corner, as if held down by unseen chains. Cam 04, Main Hall. A new figure. Golden Freddy. Sitting on the floor like a broken doll, head slumped sideways, arms slack. Jeremy's mouth went dry. Golden Freddy had only appeared in flashes before. Hallucinations, maybe. But now it was real. Solid. Still. Until the screen blinked once. Then he was gone. 12:59 a.m. The music box started winding itself down faster now. Like something was tampering with it. Jeremy tried to keep up. But every few seconds the dial would stutter, dropping to 60%, 40%, 20%, as though something unseen was fighting him for control. And then the whispers began again. He took them. He hid them. They're still here. Jeremy looked around the office, heart hammering. The whispers weren't from the walls anymore. They were inside the room. Right behind him. He turned. Nothing. But on the wall behind the desk. Handprints. Tiny handprints. Bloody. 1:22 a.m. The vents rattled. Then fell dead silent. He checked Cam 06, right vent. Balloon Boy was gone. But the vent feed had gone black. Cam 11, music box, still active, but the puppet was now leaning out of the box, its arms resting on the edge, staring at the camera like it knew Jeremy was watching. Its face had changed. Still painted. Still that horrific grin. But the eyes were different. No longer glassy. They were real. Human. And they were crying. 1:48 a.m. A new face. Jeremy flipped to Cam 10, the prize corner. There, standing in the shadows, was a child. A real one. A little girl with pigtails, holding a torn plush of Freddy Fazbear. Her face was pale, hollow-eyed. Her shirt was stained with blood, but not her own. She turned to the camera. Lifted a finger to her lips. Then something behind her, a tall shadow, twitching, wrapping long fingers around her shoulders. She didn't scream. Just vanished. 2 a.m. Something banged against the office wall. Hard. Then again. Louder. Jeremy stood up slowly, flashlight in hand, stepping toward the vent on the right. Thump. Thump. Crack. A portion of the wall split open. Not a door. Not a vent. A hole. And from it, a hand reached out, twisted metal, bone, fingers wrapped in torn plastic. Jeremy stumbled back as withered Bonnie climbed out from the hole in the wall like a demon rising from hell. Its faceless skull gleamed, the red eye burning like a dying sun. It didn't make a sound. It just charged. Jeremy dove behind the desk. But before it could strike. The bell. The music box. It played again. Bonnie froze. Trembled. Then retreated, not through the hole, but through the ceiling. Gone. 2:33 a.m. Jeremy opened the camera again, hands trembling, blood dripping from his elbow. Cam 03, game area. A birthday party. No, not real. A hallucination. Or maybe a recording. 5 children seated at a table. Dead eyes. Empty expressions. Then, behind them, in the shadows, a man. Jeremy's breath hitched. The purple guy. Grinning. Wearing a security guard's badge. Wearing Jeremy's badge. His badge. Jeremy dropped the monitor and backed away from the desk, staring at his chest. The badge glinted under the office lights. How? What the hell was going on? 3:07 a.m. The walls started bleeding. At first it was just the corners, dark streaks of viscous black goo seeping from between the tiles. Then the desk. Then the cameras. Jeremy wiped the monitor. It bled. Thick. Hot. Like fresh meat. Screams began filling the office, childlike, garbled, underwater shrieks of torment, pain, betrayal. A voice whispered through the speaker. You wore his face. You watched them die. We watched you watch. Now it's your turn. Then. Every light went out. 3:49 a.m. Total darkness. The monitor was dead. No flashlight. No mask. Jeremy couldn't even tell if his eyes were open or closed. Then a sound. Breathing. Slow. Deep. Wet. Closer. Closer. Then a light flickered. The music box glowed on the monitor screen, but it was different now. Red. Bleeding. Beating. Like a heart. And sitting beside it. Golden Freddy. Staring. His head twitched sideways with a violent snap. Jeremy could barely breathe. The air was thick with grief. A child's voice whispered behind him. There's always room for one more inside. 4:15 a.m. He passed out. Whether from fear, or from the bleeding cut on his hand, or from the overwhelming stench of rot and memory and guilt, Jeremy didn't know. He woke up slumped in the corner of the office. The lights were back. The cameras functional. The Freddy mask was sitting in his lap. Except now. It was smiling. Really smiling. Its mouth had moved. And there were teeth inside. 5 a.m. Jeremy stared at Chem 02, main hall. Golden Freddy stood in the center, surrounded by the others. Toy Freddy. Bonnie. Chica. Foxy. Even the puppet, slinking forward like a serpent. They were forming a circle. Like a ritual. And in the center. A hole. A pit. A void. Something inside it breathed. And the walls of the building began to move. To twist. To lean inward. Like the restaurant was collapsing into itself. Like it was alive. 5:58 a.m. The cameras died. The lights buzzed out. Jeremy stood in total silence. The Freddy mask grinned up at him from the desk. A voice in the darkness whispered one final phrase before the bell. "You've been chosen, Jeremy. There's room inside the suit now. It remembers your name." 6 a.m. Ding dong ding dong. The lights returned. The walls straightened. The animatronics stood motionless. The music box stopped. Everything was calm. Too calm. Jeremy didn't move. Not for minutes. He stared at the mask. At his badge. At the blood on his hands. And finally, down the hallway where Golden Freddy had stood just moments ago. He was gone. But something told him. Tomorrow night, he would return. And next time, there'd be no room to hide. Only room inside the suit. The fifth night. The final stretch, or so Jeremy hoped. His bones ached, his nerves were shot, and he could feel the exhaustion like sludge in his veins. But he returned, again, driven by a feeling he couldn't shake, that the pizzeria wanted him back. Not needed. Wanted. The previous night's events looped endlessly in his mind, Bonnie's shattered face rising from darkness, toy Chica's inhuman screeches, the crying child from the tapes whispering in glitch-choked static. "You're one of them now." Jeremy sat alone in the dim office, flicking through the monitors with trembling fingers. The cameras, though glitchy and crawling with visual static, displayed more than surveillance now, they whispered memories. Replays of moments that had never happened. Or perhaps had happened, and were being remembered by something else. At 12:03 a.m., the sound began again, a low, guttural dragging. Something heavy was being pulled across linoleum, something wet. Jeremy tensed, turning to the hallway, heart in his throat. The static buzzed louder than before. The fan slowed unnaturally, its were stuttering like a dying breath. From the hallway, he saw it, withered Freddy. Only this time, his eyes were bleeding. Two thick trails of black sludge dripped down its furred cheeks like tears. Its jaw opened slightly, but it didn't growl. It whimpered. Jeremy flipped on the hallway light. Gone. But then the intercom crackled. A voice. A child's voice. Not robotic. Not synthetic. Real. "Do you remember me?" Jeremy's hands flew off the desk. He stared at the speaker like it might reach out and drag him into itself. Another voice, this one deeper, layered and glitch. "Jeremy, remember the party?" Suddenly, the monitors cut to black, then flicked back on, one by one, showing footage from what looked like a birthday party. Laughter. Balloons. Cake. Freddy Fazbear singing, surrounded by kids. But Jeremy wasn't in the office anymore. Not completely. Somehow, his mind had been pulled into the footage. The image was no longer just on screen, he stood in the pizzeria, surrounded by color, by smiling children, by animatronics that hadn't yet been turned into monsters. He looked down. A child's hand. His own, small, delicate, and trembling. Then he looked up, and there she was. The little girl from the VHS tape, standing in the party crowd, staring directly at him. Only she wasn't smiling. Her eyes were hollow. Her mouth opened as if to scream, but no sound came. A hand gripped Jeremy's shoulder, yanked him out of the vision. He gasped, back in the office, soaked in sweat. The monitors flickered normally again. He checked the time. 1:01 a.m. He hadn't moved, but his shirt was smeared with frosting and red specks. Blood? Or icing? His brain reeled. He reached for the Freddy head on the desk and placed it over his face just as footsteps echoed through the hallway, rhythmic, dragging, accompanied by garbled whispers. Flicker. Static. Cam 06 lit up. Withered Chica. Its beak now hanging by a thread. Its hands, clawed and grotesque, twitched like they were trying to remember how to grab. Jeremy lowered the mask and watched from behind the eye holes. Chica shuffled to the doorframe but didn't enter. She turned slowly toward the glass and stared. And then she spoke. Her mouth didn't move, but her voice rang inside the room like a memory being played in reverse. You shouldn't have come back. You took everything. Jeremy's breath hitched. The voice wasn't mechanical. It wasn't pre-programmed. It was his sister's voice. A sharp screech from CAM-03 made him jump. Balloon Boy stood in the arcade room, his head jerking in spasms. On the wall behind him, words were now scrawled in what looked like rust, or blood. They remember everything. Something clicked in Jeremy's mind. The children. The spirits. They weren't just haunting the suits. They were living inside them. And Jeremy, he was no outsider. He was a missing piece. Back in the office, the air grew ice cold. Frost crept along the walls like veins. From the left vent, a new sound emerged, heavy panting. Not robotic. Human. Jeremy rushed to the monitor. Cam 11. A boy. No suit. Pale. Dead eyes. Crawling toward the vent. Jeremy slammed the vent light. Empty. Then, thud. From behind. Not in the hallway. In the room. He turned, too slowly. The puppet. But it didn't float this time. It stood. 7 feet tall, limbs twitching, porcelain mask cracked to reveal a blackened skull beneath. Its voice was feminine now, like a mourning mother. You're not Jeremy Fitzgerald. You're just what's left of him. The marionette stepped closer. Its long fingers reached out, and suddenly, Jeremy was inside another vision, not a memory this time. A death. Jeremy stood in the old pizzeria again, wearing a security uniform. The camera flickered. Screams echoed. Children crying. Animatronics in frenzy. A golden figure, Golden Freddy, stood in the shadows, twitching like a corrupted file. Then came the man in purple, dragging a child's limp body past the show stage. The puppet floated nearby, face mournful. Jeremy tried to move, but couldn't. His body didn't listen. And then Golden Freddy turned toward him, and smiled. Snap. He was back in the office. Gasping. Bleeding from his nose. What the hell was happening? The clock blinked 2:47 a.m. 3 more hours. He couldn't do this. Couldn't breathe. He yanked off the Freddy mask and stumbled to the door. It was locked. Bolted from the outside. He was trapped. Lights flickered, then exploded. Darkness swallowed everything. He turned toward the fan. Still spinning. But now something sat in front of it. Bonnie. No, not withered Bonnie. This one had no face at all. Just a gaping, bloody cavity. And inside that hole, eyes. Dozens of human eyes, all staring directly at him, embedded in wires and metal. They blinked in unison. Then, spoke. You're the last memory. The last sin. The eyes opened wide, and Jeremy felt something in his head break. He screamed. Not out loud. In his mind. Static filled the air. Alarms that weren't real rang in his ears. Cameras all went dead. Then the intercom buzzed. That familiar, glitched child voice. You let us die. Now we'll make sure you never forget. He clutched his head. No. I wasn't there. I didn't do anything. But in his mind, he was there. He saw it again. The children. The murders. The empty suits. The screaming. And his own hands, painted red. Had he? No. No. Yes. The marionette returned, face now half-splintered, one eye dangling. She whispered, voice like crumpling paper. This isn't a job, Jeremy. It's a sentence. Then. Total silence. For a moment, everything stopped. No cameras. No footsteps. No lights. Just silence. Then, a soft jingle. Happy birthday to you. Sung in slow, distorted animatronic tones. Jeremy turned to the monitors. Each screen showed a different version of him. Dead. In one, he was hanging from wires. In another, stuffed into Freddy's suit, jaw split wide open. In another, he was the puppet. The screen in the middle went black, and then one word flashed in white. Remember. The clock hit 5:59 a.m. Jeremy knelt on the floor, shivering. Tears mixed with blood on his face. His eyes darted around the room. He was no longer sure if any of this was real. If he had ever been real. 1 minute to go. 1 minute until freedom. The door behind him creaked open. He turned slowly. A figure stood there. Purple. Smiling. Holding out a Freddy mask. Behind him, the suits waited. Empty. Ready to be filled. The moment Jeremy stepped into the security office for the 6th night, he could already feel it. The atmosphere was wrong. The flickering light overhead dimmed to an unnatural shade of yellow, casting long shadows that writhed as if alive. The temperature was different too, frigid, like the breath of death whispering across his skin. He hadn't slept since the last shift. His body ached, nerves frayed beyond recognition. The nightmares he had started to bleed into his waking moments. But tonight wasn't like the others. Tonight, something deeper stirred. As the clock ticked 12 a.m., the security tablet buzzed to life. Hello. Hey, listen. This might be my last message. They've started acting strange. Even during the day now. Just, if you hear music, Jeremy, don't let it stop. Click. Silence. Music. Jeremy scanned the cameras. The usual suspects were there, Toy Bonnie twitching in the hallway, Mangle hanging grotesquely from the ceiling vents. Balloon Boy's demonic grin was back in the left air vent, mouth slightly agape as if he were silently laughing. But the music. He heard it. A delicate lullaby drifting from the prize corner. A child's melody wrapped in sinister dissonance. Pop goes the weasel. The music box. It had never felt so important, so alive. Jeremy's hand trembled as he kept it wound up through the monitor. He didn't dare let it slow. Not tonight. 12:48 a.m. The cameras blinked to static. SHRKKK. The monitor glitched violently, and Jeremy saw a flicker, something long-limbed, black and white, slithering across the ceiling like a spider. It was too fast to capture clearly, but he knew what it was. The marionette. The animatronics had always felt like broken toys mimicking human behavior. But this thing, the puppet, was different. It didn't pretend to be human. It knew it wasn't. It was something older. Something sinister. Jeremy felt his gut twist. He put the monitor down, grabbed the Freddy mask and held it tight in his lap, ready to don it at the first sign of danger. 1:17 a.m. Scraping from the ceiling. Clink clink. A soft, melodic chime, like porcelain tapping wood. Jeremy looked up. Slowly. 2 elongated hands were hanging from the air vent above, twitching like broken claws. It was watching. His breath hitched as the hands retracted back into the vent, scuttling away. He dove for the monitor and frantically rewound the music box, sweat pouring down his face. Pop goes the weasel. The tune started over again, but this time, it sounded different. Slower. Distorted. And then, a voice. Not a child's. A woman's, whispering through static and melody. You let me out. Jeremy, you forgot me. He dropped the tablet in terror. It clattered onto the desk, screen cracked. But the music kept playing, now in reverse, warping reality around him. Jeremy stumbled backward as the walls of the office shifted. The posters of Freddy and friends melted into images of hollow-eyed children. Mouths sewn shut with rusty wires. The floor felt wet, he looked down. Blood. Thick and fresh, slowly rising like a flood. He gasped for air. He blinked. The blood was gone. 2:05 a.m. The marionette's game had begun. Every few seconds, Jeremy caught glimpses of it in the corners of the cameras, darting through shadows, peering from vents, crawling along the ceilings like a predator toying with its prey. And the others? They seemed scared of it too. Toy Chica stood still in the hallway, head tilted sideways in silent terror. Balloon Boy ran away when it approached. Even Foxy, a relentless monster on all previous nights, kept his distance from the puppet's domain. The power flickered. The music box slowed again. Jeremy screamed and jammed the rewind button. But it was too late. 3 a.m. A low moaning echoed through the hallway outside the office. Not animatronic. Human. He stared into the hallway monitor. A little girl. Wearing a torn birthday hat, her eye sockets empty, blood running from her mouth. She stumbled forward slowly, dragging something behind her. A broken Freddy doll. She stared directly into the camera, and whispered. We're still here. The screen burst into static. A loud metallic screech echoed above. Jeremy threw on the Freddy mask just in time as the marionette dropped from the ceiling like a monstrous marionette spider, its arms hanging low, fingers brushing against the sides of the office walls. It twisted its long neck around, inspecting him with soulless, painted eyes. It leaned in. Sniffed the air. You pretend to be him, it hissed in a childlike voice modulating between laughter and rage. But you smell like fear. The mask protected him, for now. It slithered back up into the ceiling without another word. He tore off the mask and gasped. 3:48 a.m. His mind was breaking. Each minute felt like a year, stretched out by sheer terror. He tried to call for help. No signal. His phone screen showed only one word, over and over. Remember. Then it rang. His dead phone rang. He answered. A voice, warped, familiar. You let them die, you watched them burn. Jeremy screamed and threw the phone. His memories flooded in like black water. He had worked here before. Years ago. Back when the place had another name. Back when he was a teenager working part-time. And there had been an accident. A fire. 5 children trapped in the storage room. Locked in. While he stood outside, frozen. He hadn't started the fire, but he hadn't saved them either. Now they were back. And the marionette was their guardian. 4:20 a.m. The lights failed completely. Only the flickering hallway illumination gave any visibility. He rewound the music box one last time and dropped the tablet. It was useless now. In the darkness, he heard whispering. Dozens of voices. Children. You let us die, you didn't help us, now you'll wear the mask, forever. The hallway lights blinked, revealing 5 child-sized shadows standing at the edge of the office. One wore a Freddy mask. One a Chica bib soaked in blood. One had Bonnie's ears stapled to her scalp. One wore nothing at all, but her eyes glowed white. And the last? The last one was him. A twisted, melted puppet in his own uniform, eyes missing, jaw stretched wide. Jeremy fell to his knees, sobbing, begging. "I'm sorry. I didn't mean to." "Too late," the marionette whispered. From the ceiling it dropped again, arms wide, fingers splayed like syringes. It didn't attack. It only floated down in front of him and reached out with one pale, cracked hand. And inserted a key into his forehead. He screamed in agony as it turned. Memories spilled out, visions of the fire, the children, the twisted games of Fazbear Entertainment, the cover-up, the lies. He was part of it. Whether he meant to be or not. Now he would be part of them. 4:59 a.m. Jeremy stumbled toward the desk, vision blurred, eyes leaking black fluid. He could hear the music box fading. The marionette began to hum. All around the mulberry bush. One more second. He dove for the monitor and clicked rewind. Ding dong. 5 a.m. The music stopped. He gasped. For a moment, silence. Then. A scream. Not from him. From the marionette. It reared back, shaking violently, its head cracking sideways with mechanical screams and glitches. The children screamed too, retreating like shadows into the walls. Light flooded the office. The animatronics powered down. And the marionette? It dissolved. Piece by piece. A puppet with its strings finally cut. The music box rewound on its own, quietly. Jeremy collapsed to the floor, eyes wide, breathing shallow. But as he looked at the monitor, he saw a message. Scrawled in blood across the camera feed. Night 7 awaits. You can't run forever. The 6th night was over. Jeremy Fitzgerald slumped forward in his chair as the dawn's sickly gray light crept through the slats of the security office window. Blood dried in his nose. His hands trembled violently. The animatronics hadn't just grown more aggressive, they were evolving, cunning, watching, waiting. And now, something else was inside the building. He'd survived all 6 nights, but the phone call he received as he was preparing to finally leave shattered any hope of escape. Jeremy. It's not over. We need you to come back. Just one more night. Corporate's breathing down our necks. We need closure, and we need you to find out what's really going on in that place. You've seen too much already. You're the only one who can finish this. 1. Final. Night. 12 a.m., Night 7 begins. The moment Jeremy stepped through the door again, he felt it, he was walking straight into a graveyard. Only these graves could walk, talk, and rip the flesh from his bones. The pizzeria was utterly silent. Not a flicker from the arcade machines. No cheerful jingles from the speakers. Even the usual mechanical whirs of the animatronics' idle routines had stopped. The power surged when Jeremy flipped the office lights. Static crackled. The cameras fizzed. Then he heard it. A laugh. Not Bonnie. Not Chica. Not even Freddy's hollow chortle. This laugh was human. No. It was trying to be human. 12:33 a.m., hallucination or warning. Jeremy checked the hallway camera. Nothing. Then the feed glitched, blood-red static and whispers poured through the monitor. He sees you. He blinked, and the image returned. Freddy was standing at the end of the hallway, completely still, arms limp by his sides, head tilted unnaturally to the left. His eyes were pinprick white dots in inky black sockets. Just, staring. Jeremy slammed the monitor shut. Breathing. Breathing that wasn't his. He spun around. Nothing. But the smell, copper, rot, grease, burning plastic, had filled the room. He hit the Freddy mask reflexively, jamming it over his face. Just in time. Chica appeared in the office doorway. But it wasn't the Chica he knew. Her beak was cracked open, wires and some wet organic mass hanging from inside. Her suit was torn at the stomach. Was that a hand? No. A child's hand, limp and blackened. She tilted her head. Waited. Then she let out a garbled, guttural scream, not mechanical, but human, as if a child were trapped inside her, begging to be let out. Jeremy stayed still, heart slamming in his chest. Finally, she stepped back into the hallway. The mask came off. He was sweating bullets. This wasn't just survival anymore. This was a trap. 1:15 a.m., the man behind the slaughter. A new file appeared on the monitor, a video. Not from any current camera feed. This was grainy. Old. Like a VHS tape dug out of a basement. It showed a man in purple, guiding children into the back room. One by one. Then, the door shut. Silence. Then, red. Every frame from that point was coated in thick, dripping crimson. The last second showed the same man, wearing a Freddy head. The grin painted on with blood. Jeremy ripped off the monitor. His breathing was erratic. Every inch of the office seemed to shrink. The animatronics weren't possessed. They were haunted. Infested by the screams of the children lured to their deaths. And tonight, they wanted Jeremy to join them. 2 a.m., they're inside. Bonnie's footsteps echoed, rapid, thunderous. Then, silence. Jeremy pulled the monitor. No power. The cameras were dead. He put on the Freddy mask. The door creaked. Bonnie's face slid into view, half his endoskeleton jaw missing, exposing jagged, rusted steel. The blue fur clung to his face like wet skin. He moved like a puppet dangling from strings. Bonnie stepped in front of Jeremy and leaned close, sniffing him like a predator assessing a corpse. Jeremy's body locked up. He didn't blink. Didn't breathe. Finally, Bonnie let out a low whine, almost sad. He turned and vanished. Jeremy yanked the mask off, gasping. He was losing his mind. But the game wasn't over. 3:33 a.m., the real monster. The music box had long stopped working. The puppet had not appeared, but that didn't ease Jeremy's mind. Instead, the walls began to bleed. Dark, oily blood seeped from the cracks in the tiled walls, running in rivulets across the floor. Jeremy backed away until his chair scraped something. He turned around. Golden Freddy. Sitting in the corner of the office, head slumped forward, his body twitching. Jeremy froze. He couldn't look. Couldn't move. Golden Freddy's head snapped up. Eyes like black holes, a grin too wide, and then. The entire office shook. A loud shriek exploded from every speaker. Lights burst. Sparks flew. Jeremy passed out. 4:12 a.m., in the dark. He woke up in the hallway. Alone. His flashlight flickered, barely functional. Every door he passed looked different. As if they were morphing, pulsing. One of them had a small, bloody handprint. He followed the hallway back to the office, but the layout had changed. It was a maze now. Endless, looping. Laughter echoed. Childlike. Cruel. Then he heard it. Jeremy, we're still here. It came from inside his head. He turned. The puppet. Floating midair, its mask cracked in half. Inside the fracture, a face stared at him. A human face. Rotten. Eyeless. Lips moving but no sound. The puppet raised its arms. Jeremy ran. He didn't care where. He needed to find the exit. He needed to get out. 5 a.m., the truth revealed. He burst into the parts and service room. Bodies. Not just animatronic parts, bodies. Children. Or what was left of them. Stuck inside the hollow suits. Bones meshed with wires. Eyes wide open, mouths permanently screaming. Then he saw it. A suit in the back. The spring Bonnie suit. Old. Decayed. Empty. And a trail of footprints, bloody, adult-sized, leading from it into the hallway. A tall man emerged. Purple uniform. No face. Just shadows. He raised a hand. Jeremy collapsed, his mind fracturing like glass. The man spoke. I gave them life, and now they feed on yours. Every animatronic appeared behind him. Staring. Silent. Then they began to move. Toward him. 5:55 a.m., seconds from death. Back in the office. Jeremy didn't remember running. He barely remembered breathing. The clock above the monitor blinked erratically. He slammed the door. No effect. The puppet stood outside. Freddy, Bonnie, Chica, Foxy, all of them closing in. Golden Freddy appeared in the chair across from him, motionless. Jeremy laughed. He laughed until he screamed. The puppet raised a hand. Jeremy looked at the clock. 5:59 a.m. One more second. One. More. 6 a.m., the end. The sound of bells. The lights returned. The animatronics froze. Golden Freddy evaporated into dust. Jeremy was alone. Alone with the memories. Alone with the horror burned into his brain. He stumbled out into the sunlight. Corporate met him outside. We're shutting it down, one of them said. Too many incidents. Jeremy nodded, but he wasn't listening. As he turned to leave, he heard the faint sound of music. That old, creepy jingle. From a music box. He turned back. And saw the puppet. Staring at him from inside a second-floor window. Smiling. Epilogue, The Bite. A week later, Jeremy took a position at the day shift. Security for the grand reopening. They said it was safe now. They were wrong. On the 13th of November, 1987. He leaned too close to the animatronic. It twitched. It bit. And Jeremy Fitzgerald's name would forever be linked to the most gruesome incident in Fazbear history. The Bite of 87. Plus.